I got caught up a lot in the New Age movement when I had this really horrible breakup. It's been almost 5 years now. And when I went into the New Age movement, I got caught up in the twin flame phenomenon, which at the time made sense to me because of what I experienced. And I'm not speaking for her because that's a mistake I've made before. I think a lot of people that get caught up in this sort of thing, it can be cult-like for sure. And I would say there are cults that exist with New Age and different religions, really, but also with twin flame ideology. It is an ideology. But when you go through something like what I've went through and a lot of people have went through with a relationship that at the end of it, there were all these weird things that happened to you. Like there's a supernatural element to it that you can't explain. There's a spiritual type element you can't explain. These things that have never happened to you happen to you. And again, that's why I say I'm not speaking for her, because that's a mistake so many that go through this make. They want to get caught up in the ideology and then they want to project that onto the person they were with, like, oh, it has to have happened to them too, or they experience it too, or all this stuff. And then they get caught up in the ideology that says there's a mission and there's this holy thing to it, and there is reunion and you're supposed to be together and all of this stuff. And you get caught up in it. It's easy to get caught up in, and so many do. Thousands get caught up in it. Now, the supernatural elements did happen to me. These spiritual things happened to me. A lot of it I can't explain why it happened to me exactly. But do I believe in, say, the term twin flames per se? No. The ideology, no longer. But do I think there's something to these types of relationships that change a person's life, and is there a purpose behind it? Yes, I do think there's something to it, but I don't know that it exactly happens to both people. I mean, the other person in the equation, they may not go through any of that. It's just the way life is. You just don't know. I mean, maybe just one of the two in these situations go through it, for all I know. It's possible. So you have different theories with this too. I mean, and I've explored all of this, a lot of it. I mean, you have the twin flame ideology that falls into the New Age umbrella, and then you have another side called alien love bite. And I learned this through a lady by the name of Eve Lorgan, I think is her name. She's been on a AM talk show called Coast to Coast AM that talks about all kinds of supernatural stuff. Comes on in the middle of the night. It's been on for years in the USA. But she's been on a lot of different things here. You can find her on YouTube. And she talks about the phenomena of twin flames being alien love bite, which I guess the premise is you have a demonic force, or you could call them, now I'm just exploring theories with you, you can call maybe this force argons, demons, argons, but basically a spiritual force that doesn't want good for humanity or good. They want to interfere from a spiritual level. That's the idea, and influence people on the planet in bad ways. So it's thought with what she presents is that these argons or demonic spirits or whatever, they create a situation with couples, and then that's what she calls an alien love bite. So basically the idea is that supposedly the other person is taken over by one of these spirits, and you're paired with them, and then somewhere along the line, whatever love they are influenced to feel for you, or whatever feelings they are supposedly influenced to feel for you, it suddenly gets shut off, and that spirit shuts that off with them, and then they want nothing to do with you, and it just abruptly ends. That's the idea, kind of, with alien love bite, and it also gets into a lot more with MK Ultra and things like that. It can go down a deep rabbit hole. That's another theory behind it, and I'm not necessarily thinking that's exactly it either. These are just different theories that go into the whole thing, but all I can do is tell you things happened to me and it changed my life. So basically, I had longer relationships than I had had in this one. I mean, I knew her for since 2016 we became long distance friends. She lives in Europe, and we became, long distance online, and we got close, and eventually we ended up having a long distance relationship, and then I went over there. So it probably lasted, the friendship lasted a couple of years, I guess. Well, maybe a couple of years, 2.5 years roughly. The relationship, maybe a year and a half. And I'm not going to tell you either it was all great, it was all roses. It wasn't. There was a lot of dark too. We had a lot of great times. We talked a lot. We spent a lot of time on webcam, phone calls, but we also had times of darkness. She ghosted me a lot. But I also was codependent. We both had our own set of issues. I've discussed in previous videos how I was not authentic a lot of the time. But we both had our own sets of things going on. And a lot of times there were times we had arguments, but then it's like we could have these dark times and we'd have these really fantastic, great times, more than I had with anybody else. And when I was with her over there, I can only speak for my side of it. Now I know how she acted with me. I know how she was with me. And we had some of the best times of my life spending time together. They were some of the greatest times of my life. But when I met her, I was living with a woman here for 5.5 years. I had been in a relationship. Well, at the time I met, my ex, talking about this twin situation, which, I don't know how else to refer to it, except I really don't believe in the ideology, but so you know what I'm talking about. I was living with a woman here 5.5 years. So she came into my life in 2012. Well, in 2016, I met the twin, and that friendship developed over the time I still had a relationship with the woman I was living with in this place. So I had a lot of great times in the 5.5 year relationship, but it just, I don't know. I think it just, for me at that time, I wasn't totally authentic in that relationship throughout a lot of my life. But at the time, I know I was just, it had gotten stale, probably on her end too, but that 5.5 year relationship I didn't have, there were good times, but it was not as profound to me as what I had with this twin situation. I kind of don't really want to call it that anymore. Maybe you could say like a soul to soul. Let's go with that. Soul to soul type thing. It was more profound than anything. I had longer relationships with other people throughout my life. but this hit me in a way that nothing else has ever hit me before. And when you do research on this, you'll find that there's probably thousands of people around the world that have had this type of phenomena happen to them. And some people never get out of that twin flame ideology, or they go into another ideology like alien love bite or something else, and they just, sometimes with a lot of things in life, I'm finding you just have to say, I don't have all the answers. I've always tried to act like I've had all the answers. You can't. Some things we just don't fucking know. I mean, there's just some things you just don't know. You can take guesses at it, you can do research on it, you can try to meditate on it, and you do know there's something to it. Like with me, I know there's something to it. What I think now is that it was meant to change my life. There's no mission, there's no, oh, we're supposed to be together, or anything like that. It's that I was supposed to look inward. I can't speak for her, I don't know, but I know for myself, for me, what it showed me is I was supposed to look inward and say, look how you've lived your life. You know, it's not about morality, or now you're going to go sit in a church, or you're thinking, oh, I better be good and never sin. No, because I think the world's just imperfect. We're imperfect beings. We're dark and light. But I think authenticity, it's what it shows you. Look inward. That relationship showed me so many flaws that I needed to look at, like codependency, work on that, which I have tremendously. I've been isolated a lot, sometimes too much, but I've shedded most of the codependency issues I used to have. Sometimes it flares a little bit, or I might feel it a little bit, but not that much anymore at all. That took a lot of work. Took a lot of inner work, took a lot of meditation, took a lot of sitting with myself for periods of time of working on that, through severe depression at times, through not wanting to be on this earth anymore, through a lot of shit. So I worked on codependency, I worked on authenticity, not trying to be a clone of other people, not trying to man up, you know, live in a manosphere, have to be like other men because, oh, they're judging me. And that's been a problem with me. I have been judged by other men throughout my life. Many men are judged, bullied by other men, and I was and have been before. And but now I just don't care. You know, it's like you know, I mean, I do. I mean, I say I don't totally care. I mean, yeah, sure, there's some self-confidence issues I probably still surface for me. Well, I'm sure they do, but what I'm saying is I'm closer to being a more, am I going to say I'm 100% authentic? No, I don't know if any of us can totally achieve that or not, but I would say I'm much, much more closer than I've ever been to who I am. I accept that a lot of what I used to try to be is not me. I used to look quite different. I used to always keep a certain haircut, short haircut, always kept facial hair. I'm not saying any of that's bad. I'm not saying I'd never go back to it. Maybe so. But what I'm saying is I did those. I'm giving you an example that I did those things to try to fit into a certain mold of what I thought maybe other women would like, or you know, trying to just be masculine, you know, that sort of thing. And I think each individual person has to be who they are. Same thing, I mean, I have feminine traits about me, and masculine traits. I really think we all do, and just some of us have more than the other, or some of us we have to be honest with ourselves with how much of what we have. And that can be tough in this society that judges every damn thing we do. We live in a very sexualized society. We live in a very judgmental society. That's why I said a lot of humanity is just disgusting. And even in this modern world, they go on, people wanting to troll and wanting to bully and everything else. But again, I remind you, bullies and trolls are some of the people with the worst issues. That's why they do it. They have to beef themselves up. I used to do it too. There were times because I was bullied, I would turn around and bully. Or I was trolled, so I would turn around and troll. But that's because of my own issues. And that's why people do that, because they're trying to cover up, dissociate from themselves. It's a way to do that, beef themselves up, try to attract. For me, sometimes I could attract female attention with that, but it'd be the wrong attention a lot of times, because sometimes I'm attracting to females that act that way with people and bully people, so they've got issues, right? I mean, it's a cycle. It's a fucking cycle. So going back to the twin flame ideology, to this, what I now think is just this soul thing that happened that, like, again, I can't speak, nothing may have even affected her whatsoever on that end, but I know what we shared, I know what we had, I know what I experienced with her, which, when it all suddenly ended in such a horrible way for me, that it devastated me, it destroyed me, really. And I'm not afraid to admit that that's what happened. But it made me have to examine my whole life, and I think that's the purpose of it, is that it made me, it broke down my personality issues. It made me have to face myself, made me have to go finally realize, as stubborn as I've been, that therapy was necessary after so long, that I just started going this year. It's a process. When you've had lifelong issues, and I'm 49 now, and you've had lifelong issues of things that plagued you, and somehow I'm still here. I'm like, don't know how I've survived, because I've almost lost my life a few times to just destructiveness. So you could say to yourself, well, why does it take years for something like this to resolve? Well, because you've lived a life of inauthenticity, of not being authentic, of being different masks, wearing different masks. So yeah, it's broke my life down to where I've had to totally build myself up again from the ground up. So if you went through a soul-to-soul type thing like that, that's just something to chew on. I mean, again, I don't have all the answers, but that's where I'm at now. I just tell you, I don't have all the answers. This is what I think it is. I think it's a situation that does have spiritual implications. Maybe I'll get into that later, where I'll tell you some of the things that did occur on a spiritual, supernatural-like level, because those are also things that I associated with her, but I don't think were really her. At the time, I thought there was some spiritual component of her that was doing it. I really not so sure about that now. I think there was some other spiritual component at play. So maybe that's something else I'll get into, because there were other things that happened to me that you think you're just going crazy. But if you've went through this, maybe this will give you something to think about. Maybe if you're caught up in that ideology, maybe you can look inward and say, maybe I just need to look inward to myself. Because if you stay on a loop in that ideology of twins and think that you're supposed to be with that person, or there's a mission or something like that, your life's just going to stay effed up. But anyway, I'm going to go for now, guys, and I'll talk to you later.